23 consonants. Let's again sing our alphabet song. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Wow, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei, Tzadei, Kof, Resh, Sin, Shin, Tau. Today we're going to be looking at Hebrew vowels. Remember that we're going to be following Pratico and Van Pelt's approach. Three vowel types. Some refer to that as their quantity. Long, short, and half, or sometimes called reduced. Those are the three vowel types, long, short, half. Then we have five vowel classes. Some grammarians call them their organic formation or their quality. A, E, I, O, U, five vowel classes. Let's take a look at the summary vowel chart. This is on page 9 of your grammar. Again, it's showing the three types in the column, and then the row is the five vowel classes, A, E, I, O, U. So for the long A, we have the comets. For the long E, we have tsere. Then for the long O, we have holum. If you practice the names in a manner that brings out their sound, that makes it so helpful. Let's take a look at the short A, patak. Short E, segol. Short I, hirek. The short O, comets hatuf. And then the short U, kibbutz. And then lastly, those reduced or half vowels, the hatef patak, that's the reduced A class vowel, the hatef segol, that's the reduced E class vowel, and then the reduced O class is the hatef comets. Please notice that in terms of the shape of the comets, long A class, and the comets hatuf, the short O class, similar shape, but there are several clues and some Masoretic helps so that we can distinguish between the two vowels, between the long A class comets and the short O class comets hatuf. Let's take a look at page 8, the Hebrew vowel chart regarding long vowels. There are no I class and U class attested as long vowels. Long vowels, in this case, can also be called changeable long vowels in the sense that we will see some adjustments, or sometimes referred to as vowel transformation, occurring when you're adding on prefixes or suffixes to words, when you're making words plural, or you're adding on a pronominal suffix, or when you're adding on a preposition to the beginning of a word. All these might cause some of the vowels to change, to transform, and so these long vowels are often called changeable long vowels. For the long A class, comets, as in father, comets, ba, using the bait with the dagesh lina there in the slide. The long E class, tsere, A as in they, tsere, A as in they, bay. And then the long O class, holum, aw as in roll, holum, aw as in roll. Sort of difficult with that R to bring out that O type sound. More as sort of just a long O sound. Holum. So bow. Comets, tsere, holum. Now let's take a look at the short vowels. The short vowels. All classes are attested in the Hebrew Scriptures. Short A class is patak, a as in bat. Patak, a as in bat. Ba. Short E class, segol, as in better. Segol, better, as in better. Be. Short I class, hirek, as in bitter. Hirek, as in bitter. Bit. The short O class is the comet's hatuf. Comet's hatuf, that aw as in bottle, bottle. Baw, baw. Short O class for the comet's hatuf, baw. And then lastly, the short U class is the kibbutz, kibbutz, as in ruler, as in ruler. This would be b, b. Let's look at the reduced vowels. They are sometimes called composite schwas, sometimes called half vowels. Just get used to those terms. There are three of them. In the A class, the reduced vowel is the hatef patak, as in amuse. You can see how it's very short, what we might call a quarter vowel. As in amuse, ba. The E class is a hatef segol, as in metallic, as in metallic, be, be, hatef segol. And then lastly, for the reduced vowel O class, the comets, the hatef comets, o as in comet, o as in comet, ba, ba. Take a look at page 14. There is some momentum behind being aware of a three-class structure for the vowels. It may come in handy later on in the course when we look at some of the vowel transformation, things that occur within the class. And so there are some who promote A class, I class, which contains the E and I class, and the U class, which contains the O and U class. Just be aware of that. Again, we see the comets, the long A, tsere, the long E in the three-class structure, it's I class, and then the long O in holum in the three-class structure, it's the U class. For the short, you can see it all the way across the row. Patak for the short A class, segol and hirek in the short EI, or in the structure here, I class. And then in the U class for the short, the comets, hatuf, and the kibbutz in the O and U in the 5 class, but just in the U in the 3 class structure. Lastly, the reduced, hatef patak in the reduced A class, the hatef segol in the reduced I class, and the hatef comets in the reduced U class. This is not for the quiz or the final exam, but it could be helpful as you are thinking through working with the vowels and seeing some of their relationship with each other. That vowels tend to transform, or if you will, adjust in class as best they can, but you can see that you might want to be aware of the 3-class structure as a helpful way of viewing it as we move on in the semester. However, we're going to follow Pratico and Van Pelt with the 5-class vowel chart, A, E, I, O, and U. And so this is what you want to study and be well prepared to give the name and the sound, and make sure as you're spelling out various words, you're saying things like long A class, comets, long E class, tsere, long O class, holum, short A class, patak, short E class, segol, short I class, hirek, short O class, comets, hatuf, short U class, kibbutz, reduced A class, hatef patak, reduced E class, Hatef Segol, reduced O class, Hatef Comets. And remember again, we'll learn the distinguishing identification marks for determining between the comets and the comets Hatuf. This slide might be something that occurs during one of our upcoming lectures, a sort of oral review quiz. So basically, I would ask you to begin with the upper left-hand corner and say, what is that vowel? And you would say comets, comets. And then you would tell me its type and class, long, A class. Then you would maybe continue down the A class, and I'd ask you, what is that vowel? Down the A class column, you would say patak, and then you would tell me its quality or its type. You would say it's a short A class. How about continuing along the top row, the long, what is that? Those two dots, tsere, tsere. What is its class? It's a long E class. Going down that column, what would be the short E class? Segol. Going to the next class, what would we be looking at for the short? Hirek. Good. And that's what class? I class. And then going to the long next class, it's a holum. Good. What's the class? O class. What would be the short O class? Comets Hatuf. And then what would be the short last one? Kibbutz, right? Short what class? U. Let's take a look at the reduced vowels. There under the A for the reduced is Hatef Patak, right? That's reduced. What about for the E class? Hatef Segol. And what about for the O class, the reduced? Good. Comets, Hatef Comets. Hatef Comets. Let's review the vowel letters. These are consonants that work with vowels and become a unit. And sometimes they're referred to as matres lectiones. That's from Latin, mothers of reading. And so you see it as a combined unit. So for example, in the A class, we have the comets hey. Comets hey, there in the red font. Ah as in father. In the E class, we have tsere hey, tsere hey. A as in they, A as in they, tsere hey. And we also have the segol hey, as in better. And then for the O class, we have the holum hey, sort of O as in roll, O as in roll. If we look at Psalm 1, we see examples of this. If you can look at the end of the second verse in the red circle, you'll see the word that is spelled wow with a comets, lamed with a comets, a yod with a vocal shva. Some would argue that's actually a silent shva, depending on the cantor. This is the reality of different approaches to pronunciation. We're going to stay with the one cantor that we're following with Pratico and Van Pelt. It's a vocal shva, and then we have a lamed with a comets hey. A couple words before that, we have a yod with a segol. Then we have a hey with a silent shva, right? Short, silent, short, then silent. Then we have a gimel with a dagesh lina, accented. And then we have a segol hey, segol hey. And then if we look down at the last line of verse 3, we have a word unit connected by a raised hyphen called a makef, a raised hyphen there in the middle called a makef. We'll learn about that shortly. This word unit, if you will, begins with an aleph with a hatef patak, a shin with a segol, a resh, then that makef, that raised hyphen, then a yod with a patak, then the guttural letter ayin with a hatef patak, then a sin with a segol hey, segol hey, asher, asher yaaseh, asher yaaseh. In the book of Ruth, chapter 1, we can also see examples of this. Down at the bottom, there is a hey with a comet, a aleph with a hirek, a aleph with a hirek. Then we have a shin that actually has a dagesh forte, not a dagesh lina, it's a dagesh forte. Why? Because shin is not a bagad kapat letter, and therefore it is not going to be a dagesh lina. It must be a dagesh forte. So it's a doubling of the vowel, it's of the consonant, doubling of the value of that consonant. So you can assume that it's basically having two shins there, and then the vowel at the end is a comet's hey. Ha ish sha. Ha ish sha. Ha ish sha. Ha ish sha. Or if we go to the last word in this verse, we see a shurek, a mem with a tsere, an aleph with a hirek yod, followed by a shin with a comet, and then we have a hey with something in it. Looks like a dagesh forte, but we will learn that that guttural letters like hey resist the dagesh forte, that this is actually a mapik, and it tells us that we're going to pronounce the hey as consonantal hey. So this is not a comet's hey, it's a comet followed by a consonantal hey, and that is signaled by that little mapik, that dot that there in the hey at the end of the word. It's called a mapik, spelled a couple different ways. We'll learn about this in a next chapter. Vowel letters written with wow. Vowel letters written with wow. Two types, or two classes. The O class, the holum wow. O as in roll. O as in roll. And then the U class, the shurek. U as in ruler. U as in ruler. So if we were to pronounce these with the bait, with the dagesh lina, it'd be bo and boo. Bo and boo. Holum wow, shurek. If we turn to Psalm 1 again, we can see some examples of that. In the middle part of verse 2, there is a shurek, accented, a bait without a dagesh lina there with a, again, different cantors online pronounce this differently. We're going to stick with Pratico and Van Pelt, that because we have a shurek, it's a long U class vowel, that this bait is going to be followed by a vocal schwa. So ube, uva, sorry, uva, soft v sound. Then a tau with a holum wow. A tau with a holum wow. Then a resh with a comet, a tau with another holum wow. Uve torato, uve torato, uve torato. Let me again say, you might be listening to some on the internet that will actually pronounce this as uv torato, as a silent schwa. This is one of those pronunciation differences that occur. For the sake of trying to be consistent with our various grammar rules at this point, let's just pronounce this as uve torato, uve torato, uve torato. Here's a couple of other places that we see a holum wow and a shurek, both of them occurring at the end of those words. Holum wow and a shurek. If we were to spell this out, bait with a dagesh lina, vocal schwa, an ayin with a hirek, a tau with a dagesh forte, and then a holum wow. B'ito. And then we'd have a wow with a vocal schwa, an ayin with a comets, a lamed with a tsere, and then a hey with a shurek. W alehu, w alehu, w alehu. How about above that, we see a shin with a comets, a tau accented that syllable with a shurek, and then a lamed, shatul, shatul. Let's look at vowel letters written with yod. There are three for the two classes that are represented here. For the E class, you have the tsere yod, A as in they, tsere yod, and then you have a segol yod, as in better, segol yod, and then you have an hirek yod, so b, or long E sounding actually, B, so the E as in machine, E as in machine. So if we were just pronounce those down the column of underneath symbol, it would be be, and B. Let's go again to our scripture. If you don't have a Hebrew Bible, you may start thinking about purchasing one. There are also websites online that you can cut and paste certain verses. That can be very helpful. Some of them don't have the accents, some of them don't have the text critical marks. Those can be a little bit daunting when you first see them. I would just encourage you to start to even go through and do some practice spelling and attempt to pronounce it. And of course, there are various online sites that you can listen to all the books of the Old Testament, all the Hebrew scriptures. Again, you're going to have some nuances in pronunciation. Try to keep yourself consistent. Let's take a look at some of our vowel letters with the yod. So here we have a mem with a hirek, a bait with a dagesh forte, a tsere yod, and a tau. So mib-bait, mib-bait. So there's two baits there, mib-bait, mib-bait. And then if we wanted to finish that out, a lamed with a segol, a chet with a segol, and a final form mem, lechem, lechem. Put it together, it's mibeit lechem, mibeit lechem. Down here at the bottom of the page, we have a yod with a vocal schwa. We know it's a vocal schwa because it's under the first consonant of the word. A lamed with a comets. Then we have a dalet with a segol yod. And then we have a hey with a comets. So here we have yeladeha, yeladeha. I'm trying to get the accent right, as you can see it there with the segol yod. And then if we go back up to line 2, we have a hey with a comet, a aleph with a hirek yod, and then a shin. Ha-ish, ha-ish. Let's take a look at some more examples here from Psalm 1. This is the last word of verse 5. Here we see a tzade, tzade with a patak, followed by a dalet with a dagesh forte, then a hirek yod, followed by a kof with a hirek yod, followed by a final form mem. Tzade with a patak, short A class vowel. Dalet with the dagesh forte, with a hirek yod, and then a kof with a hirek yod, final form mem. Zadikim, 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 zadikim. If we move up to the second line, we have a lamed with a tsere, a tsade with a hirek yod, final form mem. Late seam, late seam, late seam. And just to finish us out with our second word of the second line, a chet with a patak, short A class vowel, followed by a dagesh forte and a tet with a comets, followed by a aleph with a hirek yod, final form mem. Chat taim, chat taim, chat taim. The accent or stress or the tonic symbol is the first one here. You can see a accent there underneath the chet with the patak, short A class vowel. Chat taim, chat taim. In review, something that you should be able to do is identify the vowel letter that's at work here. Comets hey, tsegol hey with the E class, tsere hey with the E class, and then the holum hey with the O class, and then with wow it's the holum wow and the shurek. Holum wow with the O class, shurek with the U class, and then with yod for the E class you have tsegol yod and tsere yod. And then for the I class, hirek yod. Hirek yod. All three of those appear a lot. This is on page 10 of your grammar. Let's try to review some of our long vowels. Remember, these are changeable. That'll be important as we move forward in seeing how vowels can transform when words have prefixes or suffixes added to them. So for our long vowels A class, what is the name of that? Good. Comets. Ah, as in father. Comets. Ba, if we were to pronounce it with the bait with the Dagesh Lina. Next for the E class, what is that? Tseire. You notice that it's easy for me to get a little lazy. Again, just having various professors teaching me Hebrew from different parts of the country. It's easy to sometimes slip into some of those older modes, trying to be very consistent for myself as well as for you. Tseire, A as in they, bay. And then for the O class, good. Holum, O as in roll, O as in roll. Again, sometimes with that R, it's hard to actually get the nice, clean, crisp sound. O, as in holum, right? Holum. That would be bow. And this chart might appear in some future lecture as part of our oral review quiz. What is that A class short vowel? Sounds as in bat. Patak. How about the short E class? As in better. Segol. Good. Short I class. As in bitter. Hirek. Good. Short O class. Aw as in bottle. Bottle. Good. Comets hatuf. Comets hatuf. And then the short U class. As in ruler. As in ruler. Kibbutz. Good. Kibbutz. Let's try it again with our vowel letters, our matras lectiones. With the hey for the A class, it's called a comets hey. Good. For the E class, two types, a segol hey and tsere hey. And then for the O class, holum hey. How about with the wow? Holum wow. And then with the U class, shurek. Shurek. How about with the yod? Two of them for the E class. Sego yod, sere yod. And then for the I class, hirek yod. Good. Remember that sometimes, depending on a document, when the document may have been written, you'll have vowel letters that are not written with their consonants. So for example, the word shofar, shofar is their example, may appear in another writing defectively, as they call it. I know the term is terrible, but that's what we've been given. Defective writing. So it could also appear just looking like a holum. Shofar. Same with, say, instead of what we expect, a shurek, like with madua, madua. Why? We might see it with the shurek, madua, or we might see it with the kibbutz, madua, madua. Notice that for the dagesh in the dalet, it's a dagesh forte, mad, dua. Let's take a look at another example with the hirek yod. Could just appear as a hirek, right? So some we might get Dawid or Dawid. Defective writing can appear in scripture. So you can see here in this word that we looked at previously with the shurek at the beginning of the word and the holum wow. Both of these are written as full writing, but something like a word here, a wow with a vocal schwa, a calf, no dagesh lina, just a calf with a holum and a lamed, but in some context you might find it as a holum wow, wechol, wechol, so defective writing. If you remember with our sin and shin, if you hit on the first prong a dot, it tells you to put a little breath in there, so shin. If you don't hit it on the first prong of the trident, then that tells you it's a sin, a sin. And then if you have a shin and it has another dot on it, well, that tells you it's a holum, so that would be pronounced show, show. So the question is, how do we do that with a sin letter? How do we do that with the sin consonant? Well, the hidden holum, hidden holum. So take a look. That would be so, so. Well, we call that hidden holum. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Wow, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samik, Ayin, Pei, Tzadei, Kof, Resh, Sin, Shin, Tau. And hopefully you see the 5 final forms in there.